Good day. Our lecture for today, or subject matter, is under the influences of architectural design. We already discussed the previous influences, no? Yung general influences, the needs of man, the other uh, needs, and uh, the influences on nature. Next is the influence of man to architectural design. So under that, we have the social conditions. So social condition is an existing circumstance or situation or state affecting the life, welfare, and relations of human beings in a community. Okay? So architecture, because it is the most permanent and cumulative, reflects the social structure of the period in which it is developed. So parang yun yung pinaka permanent na basihan yung architecture. So social structure is the framework of the society that is laid out before uh, we are born, or since the Greeks and the Romans. Okay. People learn certain behaviors, attitudes because of their location in the social structure. The next is the interest of the people dictate the type and appearance of its building. So there are different interests of the people or each human. No? Iba-iba tayo ng interest. Maybe you are interested in sports, or you are interested in arts, or community involvement, or other things that you may be interested, no? So say for example you are interested in sports, the type and appearance of the building may be uh, massive, bulky, and sporty appearance, that's why we build sports complex, mga gymnasiums. Or maybe interested ka sa art, we have this museum, like appearance like building, Then mahilig ka sa community involvement, we build civic or community centers, and so on and so forth. So interest of the people dictate the type and appearance of each building. Next is the stable government. So what is stable government? It is the mechanism through which the human needs of the populations are largely met, or wherein some government function or element is security. So stable government and improved social conditions eliminate the necessity of many protective features. No? When you say protective features, ito yung mga things that we install or provide in our uh, buildings or house, para hindi tayo pasukin ng mga burglars or yung mga masasamang loob, magnanakaw, o yung gustong makaisa. So we provide high fences, or perimeter fence, shutters, wrought iron, steel railings. We provide doors, We provide also yung mga nauso na dinalagyan ng broken glass and barbed wire yung taas ng kanilang mga bakod, so that para hindi basta-basta maakyat, Nowadays we install CCTV camera. So that is part of protective features that we provide para hindi tayo manakawan, But stable government if you have a stable government, hindi na masyado ito kailangan. No? Just like in other parts sa country natin, no? Yung mga exclusive subdivision, uh, kung mapapansin nyo, kung nakapasok na kayo sa mga exclusive subdivision, uh, wala na silang mga perimeter fences, no? Open, parang sa ibang bansa baga, no? Na makikita mo yung ang makikita mo lang yung bahay mismo, wala ng mga gate, wala ng mga perimeter fence, no? Because they have this stable government that once na may pumasok, meron na agad na alarm, ano? Direct to the nearest police station. So madali na yung pag-responde. Okay? So another influence of man that is connected to architectural design is comfort and convenience. Now control architecture. So what is comfort and convenience? So it is one of the most important consideration when designing a building or structure. It is the extent to which it provides an environment that is comfortable for its building occupants. No? It provides uh, comfort living. No? Meron tayong mga aspect of comforts, include personal factors, health and well-being, thermal comfort, indoor air quality, visual comfort, ergonomics, and so on and so forth. Okay? So, number 2, man's personality. So, iba-iba yung personalidad natin. Kada isang tao, different personality. And in every community or region, meron silang mga traits and personality. Iba-iba. Halimbawa, sa Bicol, iba yung mga ugali ng mga Bicolano. Dito naman niya sa Pampanga, iba rin. No? Sa Bisaya, iba rin. No? So, in the Philippines, iba rin yung custom, yung ugali natin. Iba rin ang ugali sa US, sa Japan, etc. So, by his appearance, something is known of his interest from the type of house in which he lives. So, by his appearance, no? Iba-iba ang interest ng mga tao sa tipo ng bahay na tinitirhan nila. So, say for example, merong single family, detached house, may duplex, apartments, what else? Condominium, mansion, what else? Say mobile house, and so on and so forth. In a similar manner, it is possible to trace a comparison between the personality of a nation as reflected in its clothing and its attitude toward architecture as seen in its building. Okay? So clothes give an indication of the simplicity or complexity of the existence of its inhabitants, which in turns control the development of its architecture. So what does simplicity and complexity means? So hindi ito naglalayo. Couldn't be farther apart in meaning, yet everything is complex or simple depending on how you look at it. No? So a shift in perspective is often just enough to help you as you see a problem differently. So in fashion, no? Simplicity means efficiency. By creating simple processes, solutions, you can iterate or adapt and scale much faster than with complex production, heavy design, ideas, and processes. So, in short, simplicity is an optimal level of complexity. So, example, the Greek, no? Yung kanilang attitude is, meron silang, ano siya? Okay. So, scholarly and philosophical refinement. So that was characteristic of the lives of people. So when you say scholarly, involving or relating to serious academic study. So medyo ano sila ano sila studious or having or showing knowledge, matatalino. And scholarly also means devotion to academic pursuit. Philosophical refinement means everything that goes on inside human mind in the form of thoughts, ideas, and information. The Greek is wants to improve their welfare. No? So, meron silang scholarly and philosophical refinement. So, that is the characteristic of the people in the Greek region or na lugar. So, much attention was paid to the body and to physical health. So, ang ano nila is more on physical health. The existence of the Greek was reduced to the essentials. So, when you say essentials, iniisip lang nila yung mga bagay that is absolutely necessary. Yung kailangan lang, no? Yung basic or fundamental elements or the basic characteristic of the building itself, the function. No? So, the existence of the Greeks was reduced to essentials, and this was reflected in their dress and architecture. So, very simple. As you can see, yung kanilang uh, example of the structure, the column and the uh, roofing, then the foundation. So, very simple. No extravagant uh, feature. Then, in terms of their dress, ano lang sila, parang ganyan lang. Parang binalutan lang nila ng uh, cloth yung kanilang katawan, and that's it. So very simple. So that is essentials. They do not build on a grand scale, but rather sought for purity of detail and development of technical skills. So ang kanilang dinedevelop is their technical skills, or neatness in dress had no place in their simple activities. So they did not build uh, what you call this extravagant building, but rather sought for purity of detail and development of technical skills. Okay? So very simple yung mga Greeks or Greek people. The French Renaissance, this was the period of multiplicity of detail in court life. So when you say multiplicity, a large number, no, of detail or variety or diverseness, meaning to say kung kabaliktaran sila ng Greek people, so Greek people is ang pinapahalaga nila yung essential lang, yung basic or the fundamental. But in French Renaissance, multiplicity of detail in court life. Sa pananamit naman, ganun din, Maraming mga borloloy na dinalagay sila sa kanilang cloth or clothing. Social etiquette was so complicated that all naturalness was abandoned. So, no, all naturalness from the word itself, was abandoned. So, walang simple sa kanila. Gusto nila talagang extravagant, Life was artificial and theatrical. And likewise, the costumes of the period, powered wigs, brocaded coats made congruous the jeweled canes and lace frills. The furniture was colorful, but the chairs were often straight and uncomfortable. All this splendor would have been inappropriate in a simple setting. So the architecture had to be ornate. No? When you say ornate, decorated with complex patterns in order to harmonize with the activities which is housed. So buildings were crowded with rococo details. So yung rococo details is also known as the late Baroque, ano? An extreme decorative development of Baroque architecture that merged in 18th century as a reaction against grandeur and symmetry. So, Rococo detail is characterized by soft colors and curly lines and depicts scenes of love, nature, light-hearted entertainment, and so on and so forth. No? This elaborate architecture lined wide avenues lavishly decorated with fountains and gardens, all designed for the purpose of being ostentatious. So ostentatious means pretentious display, or it is designed to impress people, or obtrusive, or another synonyms is flamboyant. So that is being ostentatious. Okay. So next is the Victorian period. The flowing whiskers, berry bonnets, mutant leg sleeves, and bustles were simply a reflection of the jigsaw ornament and sheet metal cornices of the buildings of that period. Again, it was an ugly and drab variety without the color of the French Renaissance. So, ito yung kanilang kasuotan, ito yung kanilang uh, sample of the architecture. Okay? Next is the contemporary. So, when you say contemporary, it is the modern times. No? Although present-day civilization is complex, we have been blessed with simple attire for both men and women. The dress of today is probably due to the fact that the science of medicine and health has kept step with other developments. And our people have been impressed with the necessity of fresh air, sunshine, and exercise. So, ito na yung uh, awareness natin, no? Na necessity na yung fresh air. So when you say fresh air, hindi siya polluted. Just like in Metro Manila, pumunta ka sa Manila, na-expose ka sa outside environment. Then talagang ang dumi ng hangin. Titignan mo yung ilong mo, ang dumi, no? Yung mukha. So that is a air pollution, no? Then sunshine and exercise. So aware tayo dyan nowadays. So these were difficult to obtain under the restriction of the 19th century. The desire for freedom of movement and an interest in athletics is reflected in the contemporary movement in architecture, which, in seeking to interpret buildings in terms of the needs of the people. Okay? So, placing the emphasis upon plain wall surfaces. So, hindi na masyado extravagant, hindi na masyado maraming mga decoration. Only the emphasis is only a very simple or plain wall surfaces. So this one is the other example of a structure for contemporary architecture. The Taj Mahal, the Museum, New York, Guggenheim, the Trade Tower. Next, the man's interest. Ano-ano yung mga interest nung mga tao? It has been pointed out that activities directly responsible for the type of architecture which he develops. This is shown in the typical structures like the house, which provides shelter for man during his hours of rest. Factory uh, offers a place in which to work and to produce a commodity of exchange. Then, church or ecclesiastical buildings affords spiritual relaxation and opportunity for worship. So that is the basic interest of the people or human, no? The house, factory, the church. So in the past, houses were small and compact. The hall was used as a workroom and dining room. When the scene changed from the farm to the city, wealth and servants and large houses were easily maintained. So this was the age of pretense and show. Plans were complicated and of various sizes, shapes, disorganized, and unrelated to human needs. Okay. So, disorganized yung mga uh, plano ng bahay nung una, no, in the past. Anong ibig sabihin ng disorganized? The space interrelationship hindi pinag-aralan wherein hindi ka convenient na tumira doon. Halimbawa, uh, banyo, it should be in close proximity or malapit saan? Sa bedroom. Okay? So, nung unang panahon hindi iniisip yan na dapat malapit lang, no, para maging convenient ka. So, linalayo nila. Say, kitchen and dining area relationship. Nung unang panahon, hindi sila magkalapit. No? And so on and so forth. Unrelated to human needs. Hindi siya naka-design for human needs. No? That's why the comfort, wala siya nung panahon. Yan. The contemporary house is called a functional type and one of comfort. So, in the present environment or present day, functional type and one of comfort. Yan na yung dinidesign ngayon, no? Sabi nga ni Vitruvius, no? The famous architect, si Marcos Vitruvius Polio, yung Venustas, the beauty, functionality, and what else? Stability. No? So, functionality. So, there is a desire to take full advantage of sunlight and air. So, the design of the contemporary house of today, they took full advantage of the natural light. Ano? Pinapapasok natin yung sunlight dun sa building interior and the natural air so that magkaroon na ng cross ventilation yung loob ng bahay and the temperature will be good enough to provide comfort on the building occupants. So the walls are opened as much as possible. So open, no? Hindi yung saradong-sarado. As much as possible, they provide bigger area for doors and windows. No? And the interior is related to the exterior. Terraces and gardens in a pleasing manner. So, the interior is related, meaning to say, you design with nature, wherein hindi mo sinasegregate yung landscaping mo for the outside environment. Gusto mo siya i-blend dun sa loob. So that's why uh, sometimes we provide an atrium na or skylights or uh, big windows, or we provide walls uh, made of glass so that we can see the outside surroundings, no? Hindi yung linagyan mo siya ng wall na hindi mo makikita yung nasa kabila nun, no? So thus the principle of comfort prevails in the 20th century design. So principle of comfort. So of course, it should be designed by the architect. Kasi the architect is one of the professional that study the uh, the space interrelationship of uh, the building. Next is the factory. In the early days, man often worked at home. It was the age of craftsmanship, the period of individual effort. So kung makikita mo nga, sa bahay lang, gumagawa sila ng mga produkto, man-made or handmade, ano? Individual effort. Halimbawa, gumagawa ka ng dingding o yung tiklad, tiklad, yung nipa na pambubong, no? Or other products. So those who created products required by their fellow men took pride in its article. So business was personal rather than impersonal. When the industrial period arrived, with the last half of the 19th century, the small shops grew into factories. Ito yung maliliit na mga shop, kahit sa bahay lang, lumaki, grew into factory. So when you say factory, it is a large structure wherein nagkaroon na ng maraming manggagawa, The little thought was given to efficient arrangement or pleasant working condition. Labor was unorganized. With few windows, light and air was insufficient, and the result was gloom and inefficiency. Okay? So, nagkaroon ng factory, but it is unorganized. Wala siyang masyadong few windows. Ibig sabihin, the light and air was insufficient because few windows lang. Parang windowless, no? Na the natural light cannot penetrate the natural ventilation. Hindi pumapasok sa loob because of the few windows or less window yung naka-design, no? The result was gloom and inefficiency. The present century, an age of competition and mass production. So, yung presente ngayon, no? Age of competition. Meaning to say, ang dami nang gumagawa ng pare-parehas na produkto. So, they compete to each other. So, that is very healthy in the economy. Na pag may kakompetensya ka, as much as possible, gagandahan mo yung produkto mo and bababaan mo yung presyo, no? Kung hindi, matatalo ka ng mga kakompetensya mo. Siyempre, quality pa rin kahit na mababa yung presyo, pero quality. Mass production, wherein when you say mass production, it is the manufacturing of this product, ginagamitan na siya ng mga machine, no? Para mas mabilis. Mass production. Pangmaramihan. Okay, so to continue, nung unang panahon, they only use indigenous materials that nung unang kung ano lang yung anong meron dun sa lugar na yun, sa community, yun lang ang gagamitin mo dun sa project mo because of the hindrance to transport materials. Hindi ka makaka-order ng materials coming from other countries o yung mga imported materials. Hindi ka makaka-order ng materials na say nga dun galing sa Bisaya because the transportation is not possible. You know? Yung transportation nun, they use only camel or kalabaw or kabayo, you know? Or manual na binibitbit. Just like those times, na ginawa yung pyramid, they use laborers or mga slaves to carry the bulk materials. And of course, the automobile has made necessary the garage or garages, mga filling stations, bus terminals. It has rendered almost obsolete our narrow street designed for the horse and buggy. So naging obsolete na yung ating daanan, Kasi nung una ang design ng mga kalsada very narrow kasi ang dumadaan lang naman doon kalabaw, kabayo, mga kalesa. And naging obsolete siya nung magkaroon na ng mga automobile, So, dinesign yung kalsada na para mag-fit yung mga kotse, mga truck, And on the present situation, nagkaroon tayo ng additional width of the streets or the highways. Nagkaroon ng widening to accommodate bigger number of automobiles. Kasi napakarami na ngayon ng mga sasakyan. Even here in Sorsogon, we construct diversion roads. Kasi dito sa sentro, hindi na pwedeng pumasok yung mga sasakyan dyan kasi it will create traffic. So, the airplane has brought about the development of airports. So, nagkaroon na ng airport because of the presence ng aeroplano. While new types of steamships, which with increased tonnage have given added importance to docks and warehouse. So, steamships, yung mga barko na malalaki. Meron tayong mga docking terminal and warehouse to store products. And expansion of the railroads, yung Philippine National Railways, what else? The Metro Rail Transits, has created a magnificent passenger and freight terminal and has made possible our large industrial centers. So, a good example of that one, ito yung ating mga pictures and representation of the filling stations, example. Then, bus terminals, the garage, then airports, of course, airports. So, yan, nagkaroon na tayo niyan because of the presence of the transportation, different types of transportation. The MRT, MRT, or the railway projects, the docking facilities, yung mga large ships, then commerce. Large, complex, and taller buildings are constructed to house the new business activities like banking, finance, etc. So, because of the improvement sa komersyo, para malagyan nila ng bahay or ng lugar yung mga activities, yung mga bangko, banking and finance, mga different offices. So, nagtayo sila ng mga high-rise building. Bakit high-rise building? Kasi in an urban setting, napakamahal ng lote, ng lupa. Per square meter, sabihin mo nga, 30,000, 50,000 per square meter or more than that. No? Dito nga sa atin, mahal na yung lote. No? For a residential is from 5,000 to 10,000 per square meter na. No? Sa mga lugar na may mga good potential. No? In Metro Manila, they have more or the price of the real estate or the lot talagang mataas, no? So they build skyscraper or high-rise building so that they want to maximize the use of that particular site, no? So commerce. Then education. With mass education, schools, colleges are scientifically planned and their functions are numerous and involved. No? Scientifically planned, meaning to say it is the space interrelationship are studied and it is functional and very efficient, for the function. So the newspaper is also a powerful agency in the attempt to keep people informed upon the current affairs of the nations. And we have these libraries, the national libraries, the library of different state colleges and universities, museums. Of course, we have our own museum here in our province, no? And offer unlimited facilities to those who would read and like to study. So in the past, museums were designed to resemble palaces with little thought to the education, no? And comfort to the public, of course. So very little ang yung attention nila dun sa in terms of education and comfort. But the modern museum is designed to display the art of the past and the present in order that it may be studied and applied to contemporary needs. So, mas magaganda na yung or functional na ang design ng modern museum nowadays. Simplicity of arrangement, satisfactory lighting, and ease of circulation are primary requirements. So with mass education, schools and colleges are scientifically planned and their functions are numerous and involved. So nabanggit natin kanina yan. So this one is an example of the state colleges and universities. The University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City. The Technological University of the Philippines in Manila. No? Then of course, our very own architecture, the Sorsogon State College, or ngayon, Sorsogon State University na siya, and our own structure, the architectural building, or the architecture building. Example of the newspaper, the libraries and museum, newspaper building, the Inquirer, our very own Sorsogon State University Library, and the National Museum in Manila. Then the rehabilitation. Labor-saving devices have brought about time for leisure and the need for recreation. So, nung una, in the past, wala masyadong recreation nun. Kasi they just work and work and work. Ang recreation nila nung unang panahon, during those times ng mga may mga during the Roman period, meron silang mga gladiators. Ito yung sasabong nila yung mga tao and patayan. No? Yun yung kanilang recreation and leisure. That's why they have this parang a, a center for gladiator, mga arena, ano? Arena. But today, because of the technology and inventions, meron tayong mga labor-saving devices na mga machines that lesser na yung time natin para mag-produce, magtrabaho, no? We have computers. So, ang oras ng trabaho is shorter na, no? So, meron ng time for leisure and recreation. So, there is a universal interest in sports and entertainment, both by spectators and participants. As a result, we have theaters, dance halls, arenas, ballparks, golf, city clubs, etc. Okay? So, because of this, the social life of a nation and the resulting architecture are linked closely with the economic conditions under which people live. The nature of trade, commerce, industries, agriculture determines to a large extent the occupation and standard of living within a particular country. So these factors influence the types of buildings erected and materials used. So an example of the high economy, no? Yung maunlad na community, makikita mo dito yung kanilang komersyo booming, no? High economy infrastructure. If you have low economy community, makikita mo very low yung development or less yung development. As nations modify their basic economic institution through changes in manufacture, transportation, and communication, new modes of living come into existence, and new architecture must be developed to conform to this custom. New mode of living, meaning to say, example of that, you have 24 hours work, wherein work at night shift, work at day shift, call centers, agent, meron tayong mga shops na open siya 24/7, work from home because of the pandemic. Then, what else? And so on and so forth. Okay. We are interested, therefore, in the economic status of individuals as they constitute a nation and not in their private finance. So we are also interested in economy in architecture. No? Economy. Para maging hindi masyado magastos. Meron ding economy of space. Building may so design that there is economy of space, of movement, and of materials. So how can we achieve the economy of space? By the way, economy of space is the full range of activities and the use of resources that create value and benefits to human being. No? So meaning to say, you design it based on the functionality, based on the type of activity, number of occupants, etc. And economy of space is related to space interrelationship that you saving the movement of the people or the occupant na hindi na siya magpapaikot-ikot para makapunta dun sa isang space, And of course, economy of materials, wherein simple materials but functional. No? These factors control to a large extent the cost of an architectural project. During the present century, the concentration of wealth in our cities has been responsible for our attitude towards certain types of architecture. Investment, rules of lives, in the process of building, investment, rule of lives, the process of building, must lend an attentive ear to the caprices of finance. So we erect structure many stories in height, but mechanical devices render them obsolete in a few years, and they must make way for those with later developments. No? Nagiging obsolete yung mga mechanical devices uh, in a certain time. So we should anticipate the technology wherein uh, buildings must not be uh, obsolete pagdating ng panahon. No? True economy in architecture is not using interior materials but the omission of useless decoration. No? Useless, yung mga hindi naman kailangang mga decoration or ornaments, hindi mo na kailangan siyang gamitin. No? Simplicity. No? And the inclusion of sensible planning. So, dapat ang gagawa ng planong arkitekto para sensitive sa pagplano. Man's economic system remained unchanged for centuries until the present industrial age. So previous to this age of machinery, power and energy were supplied by the hands of men or the backs to animal. Ibig sabihin, nung mga unang panahon, handmade, handmade. Puro tao yung gumagawa. Kaya nga, yung hard labor wherein ang dami mong mga laborers or manpower para lang magawa yung isang produkto or bagay. No? And also by the use of animals like carabao, cow, elephant, etc. No? Production was relatively slow and the hours of labor were very long because handmade or yung tao mano-mano yung paggawa. Now electrical or steam power is furnished in almost unlimited quantities. Sa ngayon nga, hindi lang steam power, kundi we have the solar powers, releasing man from the machine and creating new economic and social problems. Man can now work less and produce more. The future promises shorter hours of labor and longer hours of leisure. So this increase in leisure suggests a changed mode of living. It will promote the erection of those buildings which have to do with the recreation, relaxation, and education. So nabanggit na natin yan kanina. So more time will be devoted to the rehabilitation of the mind and body. Kaya nga, mas marami na ngayong mga clinics, mga other structures that is devoted to the physical fitness. No? This possible change in our economic structures may thus have a profound effect upon our social life and our architecture. The 21st century, at this time, man has already reached the moon. Our transportation has brought us to space. So, hindi lang dito sa Earth, kundi outer space pa, nakakarating na yung tao. Man has developed computers to solve an instant what has been solved in the past for hours, days, or even months. New synthetic materials are being discovered and developed in the fast pace. Okay? So, ang dami-dami na innovations that and discovery